And I'm going to do a quick intro. Okay, you guys, happy Thursday. This is the LLM processing calls for Generative Neighborhood Framework. Ian is sharing a project he's working on that you vibe coded, I imagine, Ian. Tell us about your process of how you've integrated LLMs to doing all this and where you got the idea. Ian.
Yeah. So it's a project that it's just been a side project that's been sitting in my GitHub for a couple of years now. I think the first version I coded manually, and then hit a wall when it came to the recommendation system because LLMs weren't really a thing back then. AI was quite difficult. It was like kind of around TensorFlow time and all that sort of stuff. And then so it sort of just sat by the wayside. And then I kept being part of these communities, but I felt like we weren't really working effectively together well. And so every time I sort of get that feeling, I kind of jump back into the repo. And I think the AI is at a place now where I think that sort of the ultimate vision for a project like this would be a lot more accessible. And so basically, if you go to this Vercel link that I've put in the chat, you create an account so that Superbase can save your data. You fill out your name, email, Telegram, location, and then you add these. You create these nodes. So if I type in here, so what are my values? There's usually a tooltip that gives you a hint, and you can say, food production's really important to me. And so when I press enter, it gets added to the list, and then that node got added here.
You can see that. Well, you can use the nodes.
Yeah. And so this was sort of the thing I was talking about, is like I can fully move these around, and then I start to see, if I toggle all the nodes, I can see, I'm interested in AI. That's kind of related to my education work. You start to group these things, and then this is sort of where it's like you get this kind of unique fingerprint of kind of what you're working on, what you're passionate about. And then it'd be really cool if Oscar comes in and then he starts mapping his one. And then if you just kind of imagine a community, maybe the Regen tribe community is all mapped out. And this is all that I've got so far. This is as far as the prototype is built.
Do they like match each other yet? No, not yet. That's where you're going to be.
No, that's sort of the next stage that I kind of paused there and would like to see where people like what.
What are you using as? Are you using something to like add features now, vibe code wise?
Yeah, definitely. So Claude Code is probably the flavor of the month. So I'm just kind of using that at the moment. It's just incredible.
It's quite intuitive. It's quite intuitive with the matching, like the request to do matching based on data in the user profiles. I built something with Replit like last month where people uploaded, rich bios with like their human design and also their interests and also their skills and the requests and offers. And based on what you input, the LLM was making matches of people based on percentages of like how high your percentage is, how high of a match you should have a conversation with one of these people, and it would tell you the things that you are in common with, which is cool. It's intuitive.
We had a version 1 of this where like we basically just gave ChatGPT API the JSON of everyone's profiles and just said, gave it a prompt saying, make some matches, according to these things. But that just kind of felt quite, it was cool. It was fun. But I'd be interested in taking this to the next level, like really thinking through the AI correlator with collaborators that have put a lot of thought into the space. For example, Vic shared with me some of his social patterns, architecture, things like that, where it's just, you're adding more depth to that AI thing rather than just saying, hey, ChatGPT, make some matches. But yeah, I kind of like from a UI, like the part that I enjoy the most is probably the front end design stuff. Like I kind of like making pretty stuff that feels fun to play with. But I kind of imagine like in the community is mapping out their nodes, like their whatever they are. Like at the moment, I just had the 3 layers. So I'm calling these things layers. So for this community, I made it values, visions, vehicles.
And vehicles is like what, like projects you're working with or on.
That's right. That's right. But the repo runs like a TUI setup installer where the community can choose its 3 layers. These are just examples. These aren't hard coded in. The community gets to decide what the layers are going to be. I just kind of went with these ones because this is what our version 1 was. But yeah. Oh, sorry. I was just saying, like, I kind of imagined like the community maps out their nodes according to the 3 layers that they decide. And then I kind of thought when the AI does the correlation, then you kind of go into sort of maybe like a 3D perspective, and then there's like these nodes that the AI has created at like a layer above the community layer. And then so you kind of go from 2D to 3D, and then the nodes that are creating in that third dimension are being done by the AI to sort of say, hey, you and Vic have similar interests on solar panels. Maybe you guys should collaborate on this, as an example. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, feel free, guys, to jump in and have a play with it. And if you're interested in sort of developing it further, I'd be really keen to collaborate.
Okay,
and,
sweet.
Oscar, I'm curious. Like, there's been a bit of effort from Regen Tribe in general, the mycelium network and MyconNet. I remember filling that out on the Tribe's platform. I was curious as to like where that's kind of at, because I feel like they're super similar intentions, I guess.
Hold on, you repeat what you said in the last 30 seconds? I like lost connection and I couldn't hear anything almost. Oh shit, we just lost connection.
It's just asking about the MyconNet, the mycelium network that Regen Tribe was looking at. I just feel like they're quite similar in goals.
Hey, can you hear me? My internet just came in and out. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Let me know if you can. Okay, cool. And I think what I heard from you was, what's the update with the MyconNet piece? Like right? Can you repeat the question? I heard just a tiny bit of it.
I was just curious about the mycelium network. I know Regen Tribes was working on a similar vision for like kind of connecting people. So I don't like to sort of double up on work. I'd very rather kind of combine and work on the same thing.
Oh, totally. I'd love to show. That's the one I was just talking about that had like metrics and matched people based on profile pieces and made suggestions. I think the long-term vision was we started with the Tribes platform, and our goal was to make a software suite that did a bunch of different things. And, of course, the feedback from all of my actual techie friends and software developer friends is build one thing that does one thing really good. Don't try to build one thing that does all of the stuff. Right now, Tribe's platform has educational content and resources, plus a map of existing communities, plus a place to chat with people, plus groups that you can make and events. And so instead of trying to build a full stack app that does all of those things, we've broken it down to 8 web apps that all link to the same database. And this is where the direction of MyconNet, like the Mycelium Network app, has gone. It's essentially going to be the next version of the Tribes platform, where we keep certain pieces. For example, the framework and the agent guiding you through creating your community profile, that will be a standalone web app that creates your profile, saves it to a database, and then that database will also be able to be connected to from another front end that displays these communities around the world, and that you can interact with in some way. And that's kind of how we're breaking it down. One of the features is this matching thing. So yeah, let's go through that. I'd love to.
Could this be the UI for that? Do you already have a UI?
No, there's no like visualizer of people and things. The only thing we have right now is you create your profile and you have a dashboard that shows your profile, and then recommendation of the people, percentages, and a visual of their profile. That's it.
Yeah, well, I'd be super keen
really cool.
to plug into that effort. Super curious about the 6 was it 6 apps that you kind of identified that plug into all of that? I'd be quite keen to kind of spec those out into an MD file and, throw them at Claude. And yeah, so whoever's working on that stuff, I'd be keen to join that team.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Theodora seems interested as well on some of this stuff. And okay, so Eric, I wanted to ask you. So Ian, yes, definitely. Let's have a call either maybe over the weekend, the start of next week. Maybe today's Thursday, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday will be the call. Sunday, yeah, I think Sunday or Monday or Tuesday would be best days if you're up for it. And I'll write a little summary of it and send it to you before that so we can start chatting about it.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Same, Theodora. I'll share that in the group, and there's a group in the Telegram for MycoNet development. I haven't shared any updates in there, but I have been vibe coding a few things.
Oh, no way. All right, I'm gonna check it out for sure. Thank you so much.
I'll share some new links in there. Yeah, welcome, Theodora. Hey, Eric, I saw you posted this clear distilled summary for. Let's see. Can you share with us what this is?
Yeah, I was it was actually, it's funny because I was in a group meet earlier today with the Venus Projects of volunteers that had interest in one of my friends. He said, what's the deal with this image that I have for my profile pic? He was like talking about that. And this was actually generated by that prompt thread. I was actually like just having fun like generating AI artwork. But some of this was like, well, I was basically following in questions that I was like distilling through that thread. So a lot of it is honestly beyond my comprehension. I mean, some of it was based on some things I was looking into, but it was like how to map an AI. So it went into the basics of agentic AI, the OOAD loop, and this is just a little like thread. I asked it to summarize the thread of everything that I was asking it. I mean, it's stuff that I'm not even really fully cognizant of, which is like, that sounds really strange. I mean, but the very first prompt I introduced into that thread was instantentional, which I should just go into the breakdown of like what is the meaning of instantentional, because I was thinking of the term extensional, extensionality that Jack Fresco would bring up often in his lectures, and I need to refresh my own mind. I'm sorry to like plug that in without any kind of like.
That's okay. I just made a Google Doc. Maybe upload it to the Google Doc because when you put it in this chat, it just disappears into space. But in there, maybe write a little description at the top of that document. I'm trying to do my best to gather everyone's interest and put them in some place where my next iteration. Okay, guys. So welcome, right? This call is about LLM stuff that we're doing. All of us are doing different things and they all kind of intertwine in some way. And I think the point of these calls is to see how we can each explore what we're interested in and then come back and intertwine in some functional and useful way. And that's what I'm very excited about for these calls. Right away, this mapping social graph thing you're working with, Ian, a lot of intersect with a thing we're working on and excited to explore more. I'll share some links now that I see yours in action and see how we can collaborate on that. Eric, I asked a little bit of context for this post because it seems like it's providing some kind of framework for some kind of thing, operating as a governance system. And this is, I think, where we're in the space now of like having done human systems last week, still needing a lot more conversation time around human systems, I realize. And I would still like to do another round of resource gathering because we talked a lot, but didn't actually put a lot of stuff on paper in the last two calls. We've been exploring this open space technology and letting conversations roam, and I love it. And I'm glad we now have a space for the open space explorative stuff. So when we're on calls for like, okay, everyone put facts, share projects you know of, and share things. So this Saturday will kind of be an example of that, where we'll do the content gathering, and then afterwards for an hour, right? This week we're switching it. Instead of doing the open space and then the topic, we're going to do the topic first. Sonia pointed out that during the topic gathering, where we're actually have a little bit more structure, a lot of questions come up that we can then build a backlog for the open space and then do an open space after the resource gathering and explore those topics as a collective. So that's going to be really fun to do this week on Saturday. Today, on the LLM processing stuff, I want to take everyone's input, right? I'm grateful that you have this document that you shared with us, Eric, just like I'm grateful for Ethan's document last week on his kind of like what it is to be a human framework, is the way I can describe it now after having spoken with Kevin so much. And Thomas, I'm really grateful for all of the content and work you've put into your socioeconomic model of potentialism, because I've used that in some ways to, test this framework. Again, I'd love to ask one of you. I have my vision of how we can use this framework in the coming, after these calls. What is the practical application of this framework? Does anyone have anything they'd like to share about that? I'd like to put that on the board actually as one of the goals. So the question is, what is the practical use? What do you see as being the practical use of this framework once we have it built? Of the regenerative neighborhood framework, the reason we've been gathering on these calls. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's good to do a check-in on this frequently, as we can get lost in busy work a lot of the times in life and not be focused on what our end goal is. So it's good to realign on that. I'd love your input, everyone. I can give mine as a start, and then we'll go from there for like everyone else's.
What was the question, Oscar? Could you put it in the chat?
What is the goal of this framework? Yeah, let me share my screen because I'm on the Miro board where we're like uploading stuff because I'm using this Miro board as well as like resource for the LLM processing. Oh, Carl. Oh, damn. Carl was just trying to get in the room and I missed him. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. Hey, Carl, welcome. Okay, framework here. Okay, so I'm sharing the screen and we're all down here, call 5 of LLM processing. So I shared some community updates. Ian, you shared some stuff with us. You shared your social mapping. Eric, if you can.
That little summary there, yeah.
Yeah.
I uploaded it into that document you had shared.
Okay, that's perfect. Shared framework about, something. If you could like give a little more description, that'd be great.
I know. It's a shame because I'm getting stuck myself on because these are like a chain of conversations I had or I developed with that in mind, and I kind of like invented some words, which that sounds really dumb. But
it's okay. You're describing complex topics. That's what the Germans do all the time.
Yeah,
they just mix up words and make a new word.
Yeah,
it's precise.
Okay,
but the question right now is, what is the goal of this framework? As an example, for me, the goal of this framework is to have a tool that I can then take Ian as a vision holder and maybe even through just like asking questions while we record, go through the framework and talk it out with you. And at the end, combine the framework with that transcript. And the result is a blueprint. The beginning step of a community plan or an iterative version of a community plan to build that place with governance and schedules and everything pre-mapped, right? That's like the best case scenario for me. Share. So the goal would be share the unique requests of a vision holding team. And combined with the LLM, get a blueprint / community plan for that regenerative neighborhood. right? That would be my like best case scenario. Essentially, it serves the role of a consultant. It's what I do as for work, meeting projects, like where we are here in Colombia, hostel that is looking to make some upgrades and raise money to conserve the land that they steward. And one of the suggestions we've made is to turn it into a community where you sell access to the land as a part of a way to raise money for upgrades to the property and also to steward the 85 hectares of mountain. I would love an online consultant that does that. And that to me is one of the goals of the framework. Does anyone have something else in mind that they could share?
I'd just second that. I think that would be amazing.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to put both of us here. Oscar and Ian. Nice. Okay, does anyone else have any other like thoughts on that? Like what could this framework do that's like hyper functional?
I think like a LLM chatbot that really has good documentation on community building based on what it knows about other communities, everything from food production systems, permaculture, solar system design, architecture,
Sure,
I guess the LLMs kind of already do that, but I guess I don't know, maybe specialized, like it's got its own data that we're kind of feeding into that really kind of make it highly specialized, I guess. It'd be hard to compete with these models that just consistently keep improving. I'm kind of just thinking through now in real time, like kind of how do you create something that's better than that or more useful than that to other community vision holders.
Well, I'll jump on to Ian's ride there. It's Vic. So I like to look at things in threes a lot. So, and part of the design of my model for community development is that there's structure. Community has structure. The community has procedure or processes to create things, and it has patterns. So Ian and I have been talking about the pattern stuff, right, Ian? But this framework is structural, so it comes under the structure piece in my model, and I call it the domains of community. Domains, and these domains are a language set that we will start to resonate with and become common for those that use it. And then we can use those in LLMs or actually tie it into Ian's environment, and it helps to create connections. So you guys know at this point that my number one thing is connection, and connectivity or relational, that's where the design comes from. So the domains help to correlate people together because we start using language. And as the LLM gets more advanced, it becomes semantic based. So the tool expands its comprehension or understanding and deepens connectivity of us, not just for us, but of us. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I really like that thought. I'm going to jump in as well to respond to the question that Oscar had.
Let's write it on the Miro board, please.
Okay.
It's content that needs to go on the Miro board. I'm also getting the transcripts from this, so that should count. But if we add bullets to the Miro board, it helps as well.
Okay, sure. We'll do after that. I believe that the most valuable feature for a resource library would be to have reviews from people that actually use that resource, because it's really hard to compete with all the LLMs, as you said, Ian. I can just ask what are the best water systems for this situation. It's probably going to come up with something really, really good for my custom situation. I think for all the resources, having community share their story, and that creates connection. To what you said, Vic, let's say it's 4 out of 5 stars. Let's say system, you reach out to me, and then I can share with you a feedback about it and any other things that might be valuable in your situation. So we're actually testing things together and in a shared space instead of it being siloed, which is kind of the functionality of the Tribes platform. I don't know how many of you got a chance to go through that. It's a little bit flat in there. So I think for the framework, it would be good to focus on real life reviews of people, and then potentially you can offer a service if you install something a couple of times and you have good reviews for that, then maybe you want to help other people do the same thing. So sure, I can put that on the Miro board.
I already wrote it.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like kind of what you were saying. Sorry, is it Sophia? Sophie?
Sonia. Yeah.
Sonia.
Similar.
Sorry, Sonia. Sonia and Vic. I think the strength of the Regen Tribe LLM is that it's people focused and community focused rather than knowledge focused. Because I think that the frontier models are just going to outperform on knowledge, but they have zero community, zero people to connect to.
Right, and it also prioritizes resources. When I look for resources, for example, for I don't know, solar energy, it's going to prioritize the ones that have. It's going to be big companies, or like Harvard studies, or some sources that I sometimes struggle to believe fully, I would say. And so having a crowdsource gathering of resources is actually more valuable, because I'm more interested in what 3 people that actually have a community project have to say about water systems versus a big company that provides a service.
So I'd like to add on to this, that in no way am I thinking that we're going to have so many resources that we're going to outplay an LLM that has the whole internet at its disposal. What I am hoping to do, though, is through these calls end up with a basic document that is like our master prompt for whatever LLM you decide to use. You could use Gemini, you could use, OpenAI, you can use X, whatever. You're just going to give it this framework document as like the master prompt. Imagine if it was a GPT, a custom GPT that you're making, where you upload your custom prompt and it answers based on that, standard prompt. I'm seeing this product as something like that works off of that prompt and gives you a user experience where it asks you question by question. And just like you said, Ian, if you put, I don't know the answer to this, can you point me in the direction of content? It'll point to you 5 or 25 different books and websites and PDFs that you can read to better instruct yourself to answer that question correctly. So that's how I'm imagining it. One of my next steps in this project schema is going to be to now have a first version of, is to build a user interface where you, Ian, can log in, just like, log in and be asked questions by the LLM based on the framework that will, at the end of it, hand you your project plan for your community, that in the best case, you can say upload, and now you have a profile page for that community on platform that other people can see and interact with. That would be the coolest end result for me, because it's not just a tool for the individual, but also helps you with the next step, which is existing online and having a presence that other people can see and learn and get involved through.
Mm.
Yeah, I definitely don't see us replacing a full LLM. This is just like a really elaborate prompt and interface for a prompt to help guide people through something.
Right, which is cool, because it's again experience-based from people that are in the space versus just like all the information that's in on the internet that's prioritized usually based on the amount of money that your company is making. Yeah.
So Ian, your point of this is why I asked, I would like to hear what other people are like, this is what this thing should do. Because Ian, yes, LLM that points you to resources, 100%, yes, definitely will be doing that.
I think there would be, I think we were talking on Telegram about what are the Regen tools that we could spec out and get LLMs to build, and then push them to the Regen tribe GitHub or GitLab account, and then we're building up these repositories of tools. Like, and I think like what you have, like a chatbot that you interact with, and then you get the artifact at the end. Like it could just be a chat interaction that trained on the alchemy guide, like as a version 1, because the alchemy guide's like a really good starting point.
Sure,
you know?
sure.
And then,
Yeah.
And then once this framework takes shape, then that might supplant that. So then, then you have that repo, which is this is how you share your vision and you get your documentation tool. And then there might be another tool where this is how you connect to people in the network tool. So yeah, it'd be cool to sort of start to map those out. Like you said, you already have 6 apps in mind. Like it'd be cool to just kind of start creating those and pushing them to repos. People can pull them and fork them and contribute to them.
Yeah, dude, I'm 100% up for that. I've been kind of like in this hole where I've just been like building little things in the back end, exploring, trying to keep up with AI stuff. I'm totally ready to publicize this because the goal of all the stuff we've been working on is everything's open source, right? It's really the only way we stand a chance to build something cohesive and collective, and is that everyone has access and everyone contributes. And I realize that this framework is being shaped by each one of these conversations that we all have on what's important to us. Even when the conversation wanders in some direction, it makes it very clear to the LLM that that's an important topic in our design criteria. So the experiment's going well in from my perspective, like exceedingly well. Resources, we can do a sprint where we spend 5 minutes and everyone spends 5 minutes on Google and pulling their things out and dumping resources. We're going to do that this week on Saturday for economy. We're going to do 2 to 3 minutes on each one of the subtopics so people can dump links that they know of. And then we'll have conversations around those topics and do the open space. That's going to be really nice. Okay, so Ian, yes, let me make that as a follow-up because Theodora, you also suggested this on the chat, which I was grateful for. And I think I never got a chance to reply to the message. But let's definitely do this where we outline a few tools. We have a bunch in mind and we've already made progress on some. And I'd love to work with you guys on moving those in a direction that is exciting for everybody.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, sounds awesome. Oscar, maybe create a channel on the Telegram, just maybe Regen Tribe repos or something, and then
I think we have Can you make a message here, Sonia?
I can create a topic.
Okay, I think we have one already for development. Where I've shared updates. Tribes tech development, right? That was Tribes. Yeah, that's where I made my last update, but that was a while ago. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll share where we're going to be sharing updates for that. But yeah, thank you for the excitement for that. That is exciting. Okay, who wrote this one? To be able to utilize a framework to create digital simulations of community. Vitaly, that's you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't respond. I mean, I think I'm having a example of burnout, but I need to go through these threads that I developed when in response to that prompt I forwarded to y'all, because it's you have these conversations on conversations with these machines, and then it's you start getting off with so many threads. I actually have to go through, read, and write down a lot of this, and
right.
study specifically. But I was basically, the intention was okay, what is the format of the to develop an AGI, a artificial general intelligence, and that also comes into well, what is the format of the human mind? And I just wanted to interject. I was talking to my friends yesterday, and they had concerns about, oh yeah, the AI are going to take over and kill us all, da 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 da. And I was thinking from a different direction of in post-structuralist philosophy, where relationships supersede institutions, where actual relationships between people, that's the bread and butter, if you will. So I feel like if artificial intelligence did take some kind of supremacy clause or something, they wouldn't necessarily find it they wouldn't want to get rid of human evolution. They would want to see our social relationships develop, no matter how horrifying it may be, because of the learning process of that. But I don't know. I might be completely wrong on that. So
Sure, yeah, we could just be the ants in the ant box, and that's where they're getting their data, and they need us for the data.
yeah,
That's kind of an explanation of a virus. You know, the virus doesn't kill its host completely
Right.
because it wants to survive.
mhm.
Be it, you guys. This is exactly what this call is for, LLMs and how they could become this thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know, and I was like setting up this kind of like virtual reality like test space where I was kind of inspired by it was a meme really. It was a bunch of like some internet kids or something. They developed something about like different versions of anarchy. Like they have like capitalist anarchists or communist anarchists, or they have technocratic anarchists, or they have primitive anarchists. And each of these, they make them into like these little balls, polycomps, and it's like different political designations. And then they have like arguments amongst each other in these little memes. And I always thought it was very funny because it's just highbrow humor, political humor. So they had like a Discord, and then I was thinking, well, this would be interesting in like a social mapping of like, because you talk about human systems, I'm thinking of like you see, I don't know if that's necessarily very human though, because like those are kind of artificial intelligences we kind of create on how we think the world should be, but not how the world is. So it just kind of got into a deep conversation there. So I was trying to like condense all that thought and see if there was kind of any input from y'all or like direct questions of probing of like, well, what the hell are you saying? And I'm kind of just winging it, you know what I mean? So probably not really professional at all, very amateur. But like
That's how
that's
we explore ideas. That's okay. Thank you for sharing and elaborating on it. Share a bit of that description in that Google Doc, because like I
yes.
said, one of my like I thought on these calls I would be doing more like co-working, but I realized these calls are more exploratory and kind of opening the space for everyone to share their interests. When I'm working on the LLM on my own, what I'm doing now is feeding it. Like I've processed Thomas documents on potentialism, huge documents, and I've created, some interaction between that and the framework to see what results. I'm going to be doing this also with the thing Ethan shared the other day. So I'm potentially considering doing some of that with the stuff you put together, Eric. So
Mhm.
the better you can massage it, make
Yeah,
it
if I
like,
can get it to more of a deliverable format for y'all, and I have to do like that's a lot of. It was kind of more fun at first, but now I feel like, oh well, now I feel like an obligation to actually like.
dude, at your pace. But this is, I think, the beauty, right? The goal, this framework thing we're creating will literally be shaped by each one of us on this call. Everyone that speaks and describes something, that transcript is getting put in there somehow. Every link that we share, every idea that we go into a little side tangent conversation, all of this data and data sets are getting put in there. I'm doing summaries of each call and using that as a data set. So it's great. And when you can share documents with me, that's an even more tangible way of getting more of your ideas and thoughts into the processing that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So appreciate it, whatever it is. I'm going to feed it and be like, oh, what do you think about this? How does this affect this framework? And it'll make a bunch of suggestions. Some maybe we'll take and some maybe we won't. And I think that's this iterative process of every call, every round of topics. I'm just adding more clay to this ball that we're going to shape into something cool and useful at the end. Okay. Let's see. AI, cool. Vitaly, this open skills thing, I just shared my screen while I was looking at it. You want to tell us a little bit about it? It's like prompts that are like vetted.
Hello. Yes, I was. I will drop links. I was experimenting with alternatives to this famous tool, and found one which is quite good. You can see a link. It called Zero Claw, and it provides pre-configured. Many things are pre-configured there, including downloading of certain skills and tools, for example, computer use and similar. So about those skills, I think it's possible to transform content from Mirrorboard to actually visit every website referenced and create kind of structure, kind of book, which can be easily added as a skill in a single command to anyone using those agents. This is just example. It's generic. I think
cool. This is great. Yeah, this is
make
great.
something similar for all of the information we are discussing.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to add that to the Miro board as well.
It's just example.
Yeah.
Okay, and actually, I wanted to ask. I know somebody already configured this open closing to share a bit about actual experience because I skipped original tool and now playing actively with this alternative called Zero Claw. And yeah, I currently exploring how to make the most value from using it.
Can you say again, Vitaly? OpenClaw? You said OpenClaw and Zero Claw, or what kind of tools are you referring to?
Yes, there is alternative, more efficient, which is re-implementation of original tool. There is a link in chat, and it also quite easily installed.
Nice. Yeah, I would love to hear. I don't know if now is a good time. I don't want to.
No, it's cool. We're sharing. So I guess maybe. All right. What time is it now? Okay, it's almost 4. So Ian, you did your preview. We saw that. We've discussed this. We added that to the list. I'm curious. Do you guys want to see? What can I share with you guys now that I've processed, or like everyone knows where the resources are, right? Maybe that's like a good thing to share, like a little walkthrough of how to arrive to the resources so anyone can work with these resources on their own as well.
Well, when you say resources, you mean what, like documents, insights that other people have posted?
Yes. Like the Buildathon, this is this file, right? We have been uploading all of the LLM content, right? Like all of the extractions of the images from Miro. That's in here, right? You can go here and you can see the Miro board extracts. And so this is all of the data that's been on the Miro boards. What I need to include in here is a folder with all of the transcripts because I have that on my personal drive, and I'll add that. And I'm happy I'm seeing that now.
Also on the Miro board, there's all the transcripts from Fireflies that I posted, so you can just copy all of that or ask it directly. I think that's accessible. But if you want to extract that and put it
right, let me show that real quick. I'm gonna show this.
But generally, that's a base if any of you feels inspired to give it a go and try building a framework.
Is this accessed in a shared Google Doc or on the website or both?
So, yeah, so on the website, there's a link that says resources, and that takes you to the Google Drive that I was just sharing.
Okay.
For images of the Miro board, and for all of the iterations that we have been working on so far, like during the week. I've been pushing it forward a little bit. Last week, I didn't get as much done as the previous weeks. But this week, my goal is to test what it looks like when a vision holder shares their desires with the framework. I think the direction I'd like to go in is doing a one-on-one call with vision holders to record the call and show the process of using the framework with their vision and seeing what results. Like I'm going to do a few test runs on my own this week, and that's what I would like to present next Thursday and schedule with some of you. Like I'd like to do it with you, Thomas, and Potentialism. That's the one I've been using as a guinea pig since you have a lot of written content already. I'm super grateful for it. I'd like to do it with you, Ian, and like like our exploration of like your project in the Cook Islands. I have a ton of ideas that you've asked for that I want to share with you, but also to see how a test run of this framework works on a real person in real time.
I'm sorry, I'm on the website now. I don't see resources.
Okay, here, let's
There's a Buildathon section. It's a black section, and then you have to see.
Yeah, there's a section that says Buildathon. You'll see it.
Could you share the Miro board for this that we're using right now? I'm trying to find out where the link is, and I'm having a difficulty. Could you share it in the chat, if possible?
Okay, so we have two things. You guys are looking at my screen now. So on the website here, let me go to the website. It's this one. Okay, here's the website. I'm sharing the screen as well, right? Can you guys see the website that I'm sharing? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here's Join the Design Lab. If you click this, it takes you down to like all the links. Access the Zoom link. It's always the same Zoom link, by the way. Add it to your Google Calendar, apply to present something, and here's the Miro link. There's also a section Sonia added, which is the Buildathon resources.
You can refresh it.
Oh yeah, this is my old one.
My add something, so I think it possibly will be.
This is and here you can click See Working Resources, and that'll take you to the Google Drive. And here in the Google Drive, you can see the exports from the Miro board, so you don't have to do it yourself. These are like high quality vector format. You have all of the processes here, and in here is the version 1 framework with the documentation we have of the actual framework, how to use it, and a 1-page quick reference. So I'm using that as my kind of beginning prompt when I'm introducing, for example, summary and similar documents I've made for Thomas's potentialism. And with those two things mixed together, I'm starting to ask it questions on, okay, create a plan for me, for my community based on this. I think I've created like a governance model and some other things. So this is what I guess I want to present, so everyone understands how to get in here. If you have any questions, please ask. Like, this is the time. This is what these calls are for me to be able to figure out how to structure this and organize this data and information so everyone can have a shot at it, to work with it and do, you know.
Oscar, will you copy paste the main Google Drive link, the shared link?
Yes, I'll copy paste that link right now.
Put it into the chat, Zoom chat.
Yes. Okay. So again, where are we? I have so many things open right now on my desktop. Wait, did I just close the website? Can you share the link for that, please?
I'm not on the call. I jumped.
Oh, because the internet cut out. Okay, cool. Yeah, the internet's been a little bit weird here. Okay, so yeah, let me do that real quick. Or yeah, it's good that everyone has access to it and can get in there.
And again, everything's on the website.
Right. And right, just in case I'm like, I think I'm sharing the screen still, you go to the website, and on the website, if you scroll down, like, you know, after what to expect in the schedule, it's here, Resource Library Buildathon, see working resources. I'm going to copy this link and send it in the chat right now.
I really want to see here additional button to a repository with skills that anybody can add with NPM open skills.
Repository. Say that again. What would be good to add? Describe that again.
To add additional button, so a person can access a skill which can be added to OpenClaw setup. So I think it's quite possible already to create such a library. I wanted to ask additionally to try to export Miro board in a different format, not in PDF, but as CSV. And it will include potentially all of the links. So
I've tried that.
Yeah, for some reason the vector file doesn't save as SVG. It saves as
No, he wants a CSV. He wants like an spreadsheet. I tried it once and I didn't get as good results. I feel like a lot of the data didn't get put in there, maybe because we didn't have the frames set up right. I'm gonna try it again and see what that looks like.
But also, Vitaly, if you want to play around with it, I know you requested access to the team. Again, I would have to pay like over $100 for that. So I can just give you my password. You can message me directly and I can share with you and you can just log in and play around with it if you want.
Maybe unnecessary. I will try it a different way. But actually, yeah, I think the possibility is to make such a skill library published on GitHub. And how many people here already use this chatbot like OpenClaw to interact with anything, to install skills and similar?
I haven't started doing that yet. Maybe I need to like I need to go through like a walkthrough of how to set that up. I haven't done that yet. I'm just prompting, processing stuff, and like using documentation. I'm building websites and web apps, but I haven't like fully integrated into my thing an agent yet.
So I'm on early stages. I will try to describe on a Telegram channel how I actually
maybe if there's any good video, any good walkthroughs that you know of, like feel free to share those or share whatever you'd like. Yeah, that'd be great. Cool. And so you said so export. So I'm making a list of to-dos. One of them, export Miro board as CSV file. I'll try that and I'll upload it in there. The other thing you shared was to create to share
set it as an objective to create ready-to-use collection of skills that can be installed to those new OpenClaw and similar things, which can be used by people.
Cool. Okay, yeah, I need to learn more about that. I don't really know much about how to how that works, what we need to do to set that up, but yeah, that'd be interesting. That's kind of like the example you shared that you described a bit earlier. Like that kind of skills, things like that, prompts that work, that are vetted.
What's up, dude?
Okay.
Hey, yo. What you doing? Oh, I'm on this meeting.
Okay, I've been looking to ask if you have something like an organized database of our meetings and Miro workshops. Theodora, yes. So if you have something like an organized database of our meetings and Miro workshops. Yeah, the website has like the list of calls, and then the Miro itself is technically the working, it's just like a visual, I'm gonna share that real quick. The Miro board is where we're keeping all the information. Maybe like you guys haven't navigated like the Miro board from like far. Check him. We're training a dog here. We're training a dog and he's being growly with the other dog. So Sonia is correcting him. Sorry to disrupt the call. But watch Sonia, witness her. He's a husky, so he's like pretty tough to train.
Well, I guess you guys don't have to worry about fur as much out on the outside. But
we're outside, so it's easier. Yeah.
Oh God, I never take the dog into the car, and it's full of hair.
Yeah. Sure, huskies are so hairy. So here's a high-level view of the board, by the way, just to do a little.
Vitaly?
Say that again?
A question for Vitaly.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Vitaly, Vic here. What is your end goal of this skill set in spreadsheet or whatever it ends up being? This information on skills, is it correlating skills needed by communities, or just showing off the skills that are here by the people, or both? Skills only specific to AI? I'm just trying to get a little more clear.
Yeah, AI skills.
So ideally to represent the whole framework, including all concerns like hardware and human system and so on, the whole structure. So skills is, in my understanding, just extended systems prompt, which guide responses of LLM. And one skill added, like a Regen skill, people
you're
ask
talking about
something.
skills for LLM or skills in gardening or government. I mean, there's a million different skill sets. Are you being specific to the AI development environment, the online environment? Here's why I ask, maybe it'll help if I frame it, is to me, skills is part of a profiling of individuals and of communities, profiles of community, profiles of skills, and that we would each as individuals profile ourselves, and we would have an evolutionary environment for profiling. We don't have to spend 3 hours with the top down typical profiling stage, but over time we would keep filling in our profile, which would include skills, right? Skills that I have or skills that I'm looking for, etc. And then through that, the engines, again, in Ian's environment potentially, will align those with the needs or the requests that people have. So it becomes a connector, again, the relational piece. So those are my thoughts, and I'm just trying to understand where you're coming from with that, Vitaly.
So, yeah, in my understanding, when interacting with LLMs, skills like extending system prompt with particular aspects, and when asking any questions, it can address necessary skill and use it to answer. So ideally, we describe high-level concept of this framework, and then can add many specific skills from gardening to manufacturing to anything. It will be aggregated in a repository for Regen skills, ideally, and will compete with other skills. And potentially, Theodora may help to fine-tune a model. So recently, there is a model released. It has very low resource versions that may run on a phone, for example, and we can fine-tune this information from skills, and we have our own model which people can install on the phone, and it guides.
So it becomes a connecting vehicle. So Oscar, I'm going to propose, based on what Vitaly's saying, is that one of the things we want to develop is a profiling process. And God forbid, none of us want to fill out one more freaking profile in our life, right? We all profile 10 a day. Everybody wants the same information over and over. But the value is going to be different here because we're not using profile to be extruded from. We're using the profiling to create connections with. And that's a huge difference. And then in that, the skills are going to emerge because there's going to be needs that need certain skills. Those will show up through those connections. Does that make sense? So profiling, I'm just going to say profiling is going to be a very important piece to this work. Skills is within that, Vitaly.
Profile. Okay, so I'm understanding different things, right? Like in my mind, I'm seeing in each one of the categories that we've described, human systems, hardware, ecology, blah, like each one of those having a list of skills that maybe are essential to accomplishing necessary components of each one of those categories, right? Like in hardware, you need to have I don't really know how this embodies. I don't really have a clear vision for it.
Well, this is the structure pattern process difference. So the structure is your environment that you're creating, this framework. A skill is not a framework. It's a process. It's a procedure. It's an action. So it's a different category of activity that needs to be addressed so that your environment, your frameworks, the stuff that makes up a community objectively can be created. Does that help
like
a little?
I would see a skill as a resource that when you're
Certainly.
when you're making your plan for your community, the thing's going to go, oh, do you know how to design a garden? And you're going to say no. And it's going to say, okay, well, here are resources that will help you get up to speed with those skills and a list of service providers in case you just want to hire someone. Right. And so this is where people would interface with those skills. Or what?
Yeah, that would be one way it's done.
What's another way?
Well, that's just it, is we're not defining that. We're just creating the language set so that the interactions will generate what that is. If somebody wants to do gardening, but they don't know anything about it, they put that up there. They're going to get connected with people who do have those skills through the AI engine or through Ian's environment. Those connections are going to start to happen. So you're not pushing skills, you're drawing them in as needed, right? So this is the opposite of extraction community. It's the opposite. You're not taking something from somebody because they got it and you need it. It's getting connected through two people that want to create something together. And some are going to need support.
So this is why you're saying you need profiling, so that
profiling
so that you can be connected with someone that has that identified skill that's been listed.
Skill or even a desire or a need. So we want to go beyond skill because we'll get locked into corporatism, and we want to be careful of that. So I hope that's helpful.
I think the Regen Tribes platform had quite good profiles, like in terms of the questions that it asked. So I imagine, Oscar, the profiles already exist. It would just be, I guess, some sort of
evolving
thing you
them
might
somehow, or because they need to evolve, right? I do a profile and God, I hate it, and I never go back there again.
Right.
There has to be a different dynamic and desire to do it because it's giving me something. I'm not just pushing it out there for somebody to see what they need of me.
Right.
It's a little nasty in terms of the human behavior part.
You would like to be getting emails saying, hey, look at this person. You have these things in common and you should connect on this.
A notification, do what I can do what I want with it or even turn it off. But it's like, oh, hey, Oscar's out there and he's got some pretty good soup there and I want some of it. What do we, make the connections. Don't think about making the connections rather than thinking about the objectives of what we each have. Use those secondarily to make the connection. It's sort of a change of way of thinking. I don't know if anybody can help me out here. I'm not doing
Vic, I always see your mind definitely always goes to the social connection piece. It's very clear, like even the LLM has identified that with like you, it's even giving us, I ask you for profiles of different people on the calls.
Well, we're building communities. We've got to humanize this. We've got to get past.
That's an interesting concept, like having agents like size us up. Like what does the agent say about me? Does it say kind words or is it like, oh, that weirdo?
I haven't actually asked it, tell me about this person yet. Now after this conversation, I am going to do this though.
Okay.
But what it definitely does is it points out certain trends. Like it's clearly pointed out that for Vic and Kevin, it's crucial that we explore values and connection between community. And it's great. Yeah.
We just humanize the process. We don't silo a bunch of objects that we're trying to make.
Sure.
For what, or for who and why.
Sure. I would say sadly.
Anyway, yeah. Thanks.
I found a lot that a lot of community creators, the ones that are like very capable entrepreneurs, end up branching off and starting their own project with their own unique kind of like container of things. And yeah, it's
instead of fractaling off, which means they still stay connected with the community, they cut themselves off to create their own environment because it becomes competitive. So that's non-relational. Not that competition isn't fun and good once in a while. Right. I'm not saying that, but we misuse it. It's abusive in our society. So that's why I language and say what I say.
No, and again, this is an example where, Vic, I'm grateful you do that and that you bring it up and that you're vocal about it, because it's literally what differentiates. When I look at a project, I go, okay, is that a housing real estate project or is that a community? And it's this humanizing element of people that work there.
Good example, yeah.
Experiences and events that are happening there, and the way the thing operates. Is there just an HOA meeting every 6 months, or is there like a weekly dinner and a fire once a month and a town hall every other week? That's the human side of it. And you bringing this up in these conversations, because we're taking all of these transcripts, it adds more data points to this prompt that is being curated after each call, that we upload images and upload the transcripts of what are the most important things we need to keep focusing on. And because we've talked so much about values and community and connection, these are the things that surface to the top. So these are going to be 2 to-dos that I'm going to do. I'm going to ask the prompt. It's good that we're having these conversations. I'm writing the to-dos here so I can remember. And then next week I'll be able to update on like what's going on. Okay, so ask the LLM for profiles of each participant. You know, maybe it'll be able to tell us something about ourselves. And then what was the one we just said? You remember?
Profiles? Vic was sharing about profiles?
No, after that. What were we just talking about, Vic?
Like AI matchmaking? Emails?
Yeah.
Was it the suppository of skills? Like, I guess that can align into profiles, and it can align into like a gateway for people into access of specific parts of the community.
For users. Yeah. Okay. So Vic, this profile suggestion for users, this lines up with this thing that Ian was talking about earlier, his social mapping, and then this like MycoNet version 0. We'll share updates on where that is and what we can do with that next. I have like a clickable prototype of a matching thing where you share your info, and based on what you share, it suggests to you other users on the platform that have same skills or request offer matching, or you're in the same city or you're traveling to the same city. We added that for nomads.
Yeah, so, and see, all of that can be fed into Ian's tool eventually.
Right. The idea would be Ian's tool would be a visual.
It becomes visual, which is much easier for people to see connections and relationships.
Right. Ian's tool would visualize right now what I just have, which is just like a form and a dashboard where you can see the users and what you have in common. On Ian's thing, it could be like circles that are a bigger size if it's a big interest to you and how you relate to other people on that. So yeah, I agree. But no, we were talking about something else a second ago, and now I totally blanked on it. Okay. Anyways.
Well, okay, cool. I would put humanizing or relational profiles, not a typical profiling.
Right. So you were talking about humanizing,
not just a static page. Just for noting on your notes there.
Right. Humanizing. I don't know if that's how you spell it. Whatever. Okay, cool. Okay. So I guess, yeah, one of my top goals is that everyone knows where the resources are. Also that everyone that jumps on the call gets to share something that they're that they're excited about or have been like wanting to share. Carl, welcome. I see you shared something about designing with passive solar and how that depends on technology and machines. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
I'm happy also to share a lot more about it. I mean, I'm an architect and been looking at this question for a long time. I have the privilege of going to school in the late 70s, early 80s, and being exposed to a generation of professors who understood that oil was bad and that we have to learn how to make villages and buildings more energy efficient, but not just efficient, but how to work with nature better. And the core of their values was working with the sun and working with nature, which we call nature-based solutions, which since all energy on our planet is from the sun, except for Vic said there's meteorites, but that doesn't really matter. So starting with how the sun works is a really important point. And I mentioned I've talked about village homes, which we're happy to share more information about village homes because I think it's kind of the best model for combining the things that make life possible on the planet, which is how does the sun and water work together on a site. And I've that, understanding that community and its extraordinarily high level of ecological and social performance um, um, validates the importance of working with the sun and nature. And maybe I just add that, and this is, I was just thinking about this, and thank you for the, something that's important to me is great rigor on resource efficiency. What buildings look like if they're extremely resource efficient, which means learning from climate appropriate architecture from thousands of years.
Right.
Great, using hydrocarbons, oil and coal, or it's 100, 200 years at most. So how did people make great civilizations before that? And I think that's kind of a model to where we need to get to. And to be sort of ornery about this, it ain't geodesic domes.
And what about them?
It's not geodesic domes.
It's not geodesic domes. Oh,
Not
interesting.
I'm throwing that as a challenge to.
Okay, interesting.
Part of what Carl's saying, because he and I had a great talk yesterday. Carl's mind goes the next level of questioning on what needs to be created and why. And so, it's not geodesic domes. Well, he's just realizing that there's a whole aspect that is just assumed it must be cool because it's a Bucky dome. It's natural and blah, blah. There's a lot of huge issues like airflow, in my opinion, things like that that aren't considered. So I just want to give
airflow and opening to the sun like a flower.
And yes, right? It's closed. It's not open. Anyway, Carl's a great second-hand man to ask the deeper questions. So,
and some and I come with I come with all the receipts.
Mejorando. Okay, so as an example, Carl, in that situation, I imagine some resource gallery that has designs that are highly recommended. I imagine that would be organized in a regional way, right? Because it's very location dependent, the best type of structures. Or would you say now there's some specific kind of structure that you would highly recommend over all of them?
A good question. I'm gonna attach an article that I just written that it's a PDF and clearly I have a bit. So to your question of what it looks like, it's architects get stopped by this idea of passive solar oriented design working with nature because we think it's going to look like a certain thing. And I think designing with nature is not a roadblock. It's actually an opportunity. It's sort of a strength that can bring great creativity.
Sure.
And to what it looks like, I would say I would suggest start with how did non-Europeans to you because kind of Europeans kind of screwed things up with our bringing all of our tools and extractive thinking. So how did the Persians build 3,000 years ago? How did the Persians make ice 2,000 years ago? There's lots.
Right.
How did they make ice before refrigerators? There are just a lot of really great examples.
Mm-hmm.
To the term like geodesic dome, for an example, if you're going to build in the subtropical zone, the solution is something that's raised above the ground. It's made of grass. So grass. So in a tropical climate, what you need is shade and ventilation. The way you make that is grass huts raised above the ground.
Yeah.
So, and that's not so. So one size does not fit all, except there's a lot of similarities, but it's I don't know if that helps, but um,
Okay.
there's actually just in defense of my critique of geodesic domes, the guy who is the right-hand man of Buckminster Fuller, who helped him build the first geodesic domes. There's a really great article. He says like it doesn't work.
Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah. He's pretty clear about that.
I shared in the chat something that I think both Vic and you would really appreciate on biotexture. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Dan Winter or Alusha, but they have dedicated their
Yep, and one of my boys.
Who is where's the what's I don't oh there
and this is also a book because you made that reference. What was that, Carl?
I just saw the link. I didn't see it until just now.
Oh, okay. And then I also shared a Goodreads book link about biotexture in ancient Persia because you made that reference about how do they make ice there. So they had all these amazing underwater aqueducts and water catchments and designs of buildings on how they would capture airflow and cycle it down and use that to cool the buildings. Some really cool.
You're referring to just to show off about my receipts. You're particularly talking about the Persian wind cooling towers, and people can Google it to see what it is.
Mm-hmm.
The oldest ones are 600 to 800 years old. They reduce the indoor temperature with no power by 14 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. The oldest ones are 600 to 800 years old. They've not been refilled with freon or toxic gases, no repair in 600 years. So it's a pretty great example of working with nature and being really efficient and resilient because absolutely no repair in 600 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's possible. So,
yeah. There's you ever read the Dune series?
No, I'm not a big science fiction guy.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. They really went he wouldn't really hog on that in his books. Like if they don't really cover it in the movies as much, but they go into the science is a lot more in the books.
To use your word, I've gone hog on it. Like how do you build something?
Yeah,
because that's what I'm about.
Mm-hmm.
So village homes, and I could one of the primary. There's many, but village homes shows us how to design a community, and you reduce the microclimate by 10 to 15 degrees in a part of California that's really fucking hot, and that people live there without air conditioning in the summer.
Wow.
Completely doable. So I'll just close that. For me, I'm starting to get to the point where if you're going to build a community and you can't lower the microclimate around the building by 10 to 15 degrees, then you ain't green.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
You're not doing it because we know how to do that. They did it in the Alhambra, they did it in Persia, they did it in village homes in Davis. We have far too few modern examples how to do it, and that's my interest is that.
Okay,
so
cool.
That's a whole lot of their stuff there, but that's anyway. But thanks for letting me.
Yeah, I had a conversation with my friend the other day about that exact point. It was like, oh, you want to build a city out in the desert, you got to think about that water. Are you taking the water out of the actual ecological system, or is there any way to get more water into the system, if even possible? And I think of those designs that Michael Reynolds does with his Earthships and those gardens and those built-in greenhouses. And like it only
Well,
rains.
I'm sorry, I'm going to be rude, but you just look at the document I just put in there because the Earthships in California, the Earthships in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
This is a paper I generated from asking questions from Cloud AI, and it actually points to two things that are popular amongst alternative seekers.
Mm-hmm.
One is Earthships, and one is domes, and it's things very clearly like why they don't work.
Mm-hmm.
And like to be generous, sorry for being so. The Earthships in New Mexico, Michael Reynolds would have been well served to take an introductory class on passive solar design, which means like then you would learn you don't need to have the whole south wall made of glass, and you need a roof overhang to keep it. And the Earth chips are famous for overheating even in the summer.
Oh well.
So,
And
so
the tire outcasting has always been a concern for a lot of folks.
yeah. So I can also talk less generous about. Anyways, there's a short
I like the
document that explains
concept.
some of the
Yeah, but
shortcomings.
might not be. Yeah, the concept might not be routed in reality. Um,
Anyway, I
uh,
thought,
I mean,
So
and like, what can you do about the Colorado, the Hoover Dam and the Colorado River and the Calumet? It's like a lot of those issues that we have in San Francisco and in Los Angeles specifically. It's like,
well, if you ask me a question, I'll tell you the answer. And it's not
yeah,
me. There's I just recently found a really great video about uh, people in Ethiopia after 30 years of planting trees that die, trees that Europeans tell them to plant. They said, well, what we're going to do is we're just going to start sculpting the land to hold the water on the land more. So
right.
there are some really great examples in developing countries how to do that, how to increase water flow, which are also some really great lessons in village homes that follow the same principle. Keep the water on the land.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that project's great, by the way. Thank you for sharing that, Carl, and like the
It's
document that you shared about them. It's really, really good. It's like
yeah,
inspired a lot from looking through it and seeing how they've done it so well.
it's
Good case study.
the shocking thing is it's not very complicated except we just have to get out of our way
Right.
and recognize what's already there and stop
Mhm.
reinventing more complicated
Right,
systems.
right, right, right.
Anyway, that's my
Right. Someone with the tenacity of a land developer that also has these like paradigms of design ingrained has to design a place for that to work. And I think this is what these calls are about. Um,
I hope so. It's
I mean, it is for me, right? Like I'm an engineer, a software engineer by like schooling. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 15 years of my life, 20 years of my life, I guess now. Yeah, 15. And my goal is with this deep interest in regenerative systems design, because that's where my heart goes, to feel confident enough as a land developer to put together a plan and present it to a bunch of people and raise X million dollars to build a place that is exactly like village homes. Um, Connected to nature, I would actually put more amenity infrastructure in the huge, like, it seems like to be a huge suburb. I would put more amenity stuff ingrained in the suburbs. But yeah,
But
like we all have our,
one of the things that's beautiful about village homes
yeah,
is if you squint, it looks like a typical suburb,
yeah.
but it's not. It's actually, and Bill Mollison, Jeff Lawton, and I, and some other people think it's kind of the best example of what we're talking about.
It looks like it from what I've seen. Yeah.
And if Bill Mollison says it is, I'll take that.
Right.
um, but to the point of developers, and this here's as an architect, architects have done a bad service because we have convinced people, and this is just part of general marketing, we've convinced people that green is good, but you have to
Yeah.
spend more money to do it. and to use a phrase, that's bullshit. And there was
Sure.
no way to save our planet or save our place on the planet. So that's another part of my dogma is that we need to show how to do it for less money. Village homes cost less money, cost less to develop than the conventional development. And I have there's one other example that's equally sort of valid. But in passive solar buildings, it's 2 and 3 times more. They're 2 and 3 times more efficient than your certified building, and it costs less to build. You're not paying a premium.
Just because you designed in alignment with nature.
Yep.
Right, which is why we kicked off with ecology. Carl, I would love to do, like, you have a trove of knowledge and experiences. I'd love to do like a podcast style call with you. Like, I'm starting to see the divergence in topics that we go through on these calls. And I'd love to make little pockets to like honor each person's speciality. I think this is how Chimera saw these calls originally, where it was going to be like people with a lot of experience that have done and built specific things, sharing like what you're doing right now, Carl. Super, super valuable. Like what Vic has shared a lot with his experience in creating social groups and spaces like that, right? And giving them a space and a stage to share where their mind goes on a specific topic. Obviously, yours is with like hardware and ecological design combinations.
It's social, but it's I'm an architect, but yeah, absolutely, because I think that not to be modest, again, I'm not being just be factual. This is something I've looked into a lot,
sure,
but there's this, and it's not I have thoughts that seem really brilliant, and I say that because the real point here is that they're kind of brilliant insights only because I've stopped thinking, I've stopped inventing, and just looked at nature for the solution. And when you do that, it's always better.
Yeah, that's the win. I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So I'd love to I'm going to message you privately. I have your Telegram now. You're in the group, by the way. I messaged you in the group as well. So add that to your favorites list on Telegram. If you don't know how to, make sure you guys have like your folder set up in Telegram. It makes Telegram such a much more pleasant experience.
For the immediate future, send me an email because I'm just getting used to Telegram. But
okay, that's cool. Yeah, I'll send you an email as well. Yeah. I'd love to schedule like a call and maybe share like a podcast style thing, and we can take even that content that you share in there and add that to the repository of data. Similar like
I know we're running. If I can share one thing about Village Homes and as an example of cost-effective, more resilient. Yeah. But Michael Corbett had this brilliant idea in 1972 or whatever. Let's keep the water on the site. It's like
right.
And so he designed the landscape, designed the grading, to do that. So part of that natural solution was able to avoid concrete drain pipes underground, which is a part of all of our communities. We think to solve the problem, you use concrete drain pipes underground. And so this is an example of, by working with nature, he's avoided that technology, which is more expensive, more prone to maintenance. So literally that they saved $200,000 on concrete drain pipes, and they bought 300 fruit trees, which is now what has become the the core of its it provides enough food that some people get 70% of their food on site.
Well, so what do they do for drainage? What do they do for like? So imagine they don't have like gray black water. Each house has its own gray black water.
Well, the black water is conventional. That actually the thing that the city wouldn't let them do was to treat black water on site.
Oh, okay.
This is just capturing rainwater.
Oh, okay, cool. Got it.
This is so it's those fruit trees, the trees, and that collecting water for holding that water on the site through the winter for 50 years was why the microclimate is 10 to 15 degrees cooler.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I Have you seen anything on the studies of like agrivoltaics where they use solar panels to like shade crops and they found that there's like a trans evaporation aspect? I was wondering like if you use that in conjunction with these rainwater swales, like it's not like a mathematical equation where it can like increase the amount of water retention, or maybe I mean
No, no, it's I think the photovoltaic with it's kind of it's an add-on sort of thing. I don't know. It's
Yeah, because I was like thinking if you put those panels like over top the rainwater swales, I mean, for one, you're going to collect water more directly from the solar panels when it rains, and then it would like trickle down right underneath where the swale is, and then the shading of those panels would increase that microclimate, a different like a temperature difference.
I appreciate the sentiment, but you're
But
adding a machine to a system that's working pretty damn well already.
yeah.
So the machine, so I, if you, the question is, how do you add solar panels, whether it's on the roof or whatever, to this type of community? That's another sort of design problem. Probably it would be on the roof. I don't know, but I'm just saying that what you're talking about
Yeah,
is
yeah,
you're coming from the principle of, can we add a machine to make it better? It's already pretty good.
it's pretty
And I
good
would
as
just
it is.
say,
Yeah.
use the machine carefully.
Yes, yeah, that's where I'm trying to like because I'm
So the
trying to
solar
simplify
panels
it.
over any part of the creek or the swells or whatever,
It's going to affect
it's
it.
not going to change. It's not going to change the microclimate that's already developed, because it doesn't come from the shade. It comes from the cooling off is not just the shade, but it's the deep, healthy moisture in the soil.
Okay. Okay, just in general, anyways. So it might cause more problems than solutions, if anything. It could. Yeah, I mean
And
that's
generally, I
generally.
think machines do that. But and again, sorry, Oscar, you said a software engineer, right? You said.
Yeah. That's what I went to school for.
And one of the great insights I've had in talking to software engineers, it's actually the same principle, a similar principle. When you, as a software engineer, if you trying to solve one problem at a time, you always create more problems. And the
Yeah.
exact freaking thing is true in regenerative architecture design. If
Sure.
you're if you use one solution to solve a problem, you're going to generate more problems always.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
wicked
And I
problem.
have some examples of that too, but maybe another time.
Yeah, and
And
so
it
these are
will.
all hardware things. Yeah, it's too bad you weren't there for the hardware calls. Which again, I'd be very open to have like an
Oh
explorative
yeah,
conversation.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so on Saturdays there'll be space for it, but I think we're going to schedule something because
I think we should do it. I think we should do it.
I'm grateful Dr. Brian invited you. You started the calls much later than everybody else. Yeah, it'd be nice to like, the grand vision of all of these calls is that eventually there'll be kind of like Vic also suggested, there'll be like a splintering off of like people who keep talking about human systems every week, once a week, until they really gather much more resources and massage the tool for creating the human systems better. Same for hardware, that we would have a regular call for hardware. It doesn't have to be every week, but we can do one, Carl, and we'll message to schedule that.
Message for now, just email, please, because I'm still trying to
Yeah.
figure out
I'll
Telegram.
email you. I'll email you.
And if you want, I mean, I've written some papers and some presentations about village homes, which provide some more sort of details about it.
Send them. I'd love to. I saw the thing on passive solar design. I just uploaded it to the Tribes platform where we upload PDFs, resources like that. I'll be uploading to the platform. So that's cool.
Okay. Well, thanks for
Okay,
letting
guys.
me.
We're a bit past the time. I just wanted to do a checkout with everyone. How's everyone feeling? What's everyone's kind of like reflection? We'll be doing a call Saturday. Reminder: the call will be from. We're changing the time again. It's not going to be from 2 to 3 and then 3 to 4:30. It's going to be from 3 to 4:30 like normal, and then 4:30 to 5:30. Can you walk in, please? And then 4:30 to 5:30, where we'll do the open space at that time. So I hope that fits. Tidora, that might be late for Europe time. That'll be like just about now. The call would be happening. So if you're up now, maybe you'll still be up on Saturday and you'll want to join. Cool. And so takeaways for me and Ian and Theodora, I'm very excited to talk about the tech stack and these tools that we want to consider. I'll share everything we have so far and kind of jam on that. Anyone interested in following up on that? Sonia just made a tech stack in the Telegram channel where you can keep up and share suggestions. I'm very excited for that. I'm excited to push a lot of stuff to GitHub that I haven't yet. So thank you for the push on that, Ian, and for asking for that.
One question,
Thomas said,
Oscar.
yeah, go ahead.
Wait, is the place called Tribes Tech Development Collab on Telegram?
On Telegram. Yeah, I think Sonia just made that group.
Something like that. All right.
She tagged you in it. Yeah, Regen Tech Stack.
Yeah, okay.
Let me see, Theodora, I just tagged you in there.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, cool.
I actually have to really leave because my computer is crashing.
Okay, I'm happy I got you. You have the link. We're there. We're connected.
But yeah. Thank you so much for this meeting.
Okay,
This was super informative. Actually, I got to see some tools. I think we have to have a meeting about open source tools and software because it's kind of time to migrate.
Yeah, it would be better for us to have, I realize that's what's missing is a way for everything to be more accessible and connected to everyone. Definitely need some help with that. I think let's talk about that in the Telegram channel.
Yeah.
That'll be cool. And I'll help implement a lot of that. That'd be great.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Carl and Vitali and Ian and Eric and Thomas. I didn't hear from you today, but you guys were great.
Sorry for taking so much time. Let me just add a note about Icon Homes.
Yep.
Whatever the printing. So they add some chemicals into sand and cement to make it flow.
Yep.
That's somewhat flammable. Here's an example of you put a technology to solve a problem and it creates another problem.
Yep.
So because it's flammable, they have to add another chemical to make it less flammable.
Yeah, right.
So, isn't that I love that it's so similar to software design.
Yeah, definitely. As above, so below. Software is only the closest embodiment of nature that we can manifest so far.
It shockingly is. It's really
totally.
It's
totally.
Anyway, thanks for the.
Yeah. Thank you. Does anyone have any closing remarks? Anything you want to leave with the group? I left some to-dos on the Miro board. I hope everybody saw. I'll be following up on that.
Thank you for taking time, and it's too bad we can't be a little bit more concise on the goals. We end up talking about hardware systems in the LLM processing group, but I don't know. I mean,
I got some here on the screen today, though. What is the goal of this framework? Everyone added some. We got a bunch of extra ones down here, which is great. And then I listed some to-dos. I still have a bunch of to-dos to add from this. What is the goal of this framework call?
And thank you for having me, even though I feel I'm really out of place here. This is not my wheelhouse. Probably none of this, but it's interesting.
Okay, bro. You're adding spice to the mix, and it's good.
It takes a village.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Eric, what's your background? I mean, sorry, you asked some nice questions.
Actually, I got to give a shout out to my aunt. Christina. She was a student at Ian Maharg, and she was actually mentioning the corporates, the village homes in Davis. She worked in the EPA for about 40 years. Just recently
Ian
retired.
Maharg's a god. He's the real thing.
Yes. Yeah. So she got me Design with Nature. I got a copy over there. Very inspiring, and it is something hard to do that. My mind is still oriented into those solutions instead of adaptability, and that's a lifelong learning process. And I'm a high school dropout. I'm a black collar worker. I could only say bad things about my situations, but I definitely love all of this field of study, and hopefully I can get into some kind of direction that makes my own life make a little bit more sense. But
you're tapped in, you're passionate about it, you share a ton of good resources, you like definitely seem to be a self-learner, and like you're definitely pointing in the right direction, man. Like you are moving in the right direction, and it's a matter of time before you find a cool physical land project, which is like our journey as well right now. We're looking for the right land project to be at and build at and work and turn it into something epic. This is like right now.
Like what brought me here is definitely the Venus Project. I think my biggest, I think Peter Joseph was really the one that brought me to the Venus Project. You know, that Occupy movement was real popular when I was a kid in high school. And, well, I mean, it was to certain people. But I've been following that track since 2008, and I just had a really good family background. So I got to give a lot of my, you know, you got to know where you come from, you know, the environment that shaped you. So, yeah, hopefully I can be somewhere at some point in time. I'll, you know, get that moment.
Thanks for sharing it, Eric. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My father was a high school dropout, taught me the great lesson of living when we lived in Turkey, not to be afraid of people who are not like you. Taught me he was a gracious, wonderful person, soul, which is that's the biggest lesson. I wasn't supposed to go to college because of whatever, you know, from my high school counselor. I actually got into college. I have a master's from Yale, so I get it.
Yeah. It's
it's the heart that my father's left me is what.
Yeah, that really is that's the true flow. It's like there's the mind and the heart kind of battle. It's like you know, you come from a family of doctors and you end up being like some weird artist that's not even producing, you know, regular art. You know, it ends up, how is that going to be described in the future? But it's the relationships you build, so it's
just
cool.
Appreciate your sharing. So I just wanted to share that point. So
thank you, Carl. I appreciate it. It's cool. Big heart. And I'm glad to be here with y'all. I should probably get on. I gotta do some stuff, kind of go shopping and stuff. So I'll catch you guys.
Thank you for sharing that, Malik, and thank you for asking, Carl. It's beautiful to make time like this on the calls as well. You know, where we connect with each other a bit more. Right, that this is a beautiful connection piece that Vic holds at a high regard, and we all should, because this is what we're designing for. Like these are the moments that, yeah. Cool.
Thanks for the share.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Oscar. Thanks,
Happy
everyone.
Thursday. We'll chat soon. We'll be in that chat, Ian. Let's go. We have a call. Let's schedule a call for either Sunday or Monday.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
All right, cool.
Bye, guys.
We'll talk to you guys. Thomas, if you're there, prepare for your presentation of potentialism. Maybe we can ideate something for that. I'll text you and we can work on something.